So we're finally back to do some more SCP stuff. Like promised, okay? And this was a highly suggested SCP Class K scenario related item.
Okay.
Okay? A voice behind me. You know this is very, very deep fan fiction.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we're getting deep in here.
We're done with the surface level stuff. We'll probably revisit some of the other popular SCPs, you know, sometime this year. It's been a while. It doesn't seem like it for us, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, I was just looking at that too, and I was just thinking, like, I need to get back into SCP stuff, so I'm ready.
We say that all the time. Like, it's a constant, we always be like, oh, I guess we can do SCP stuff.
Okay, but in our defense, we didn't know that Internet Historian was just suddenly going to start dropping hella content out of nowhere.
That's true, and I got to get caught up on video game content. I started doing the Seth reactions again.
Yeah.
Have you ever done one of the Seth videos with me before?
No.
Oh, yeah, we're going to drag you in. But here we go. SCP-3812. The last one we did actually went over really well.
Nice.
With the pig guy that was like eating the stuff and like shitting out the stuff that the people were eating in the place. It was coming out of his tummy or something, right?
Why did you remind me about that?
Well, it went well, is what I was saying. People enjoyed that. So this might be more of that.
I could leave right now.
Some of the SCP content is kind of graphic. If you don't like it, I'll deal with it. Here we go.
SCP-3812. A voice behind me.
For the record, if you're walking somewhere and you hear a voice behind you, don't turn around.
You know, this is why men can't find girlfriends. What do you mean if you hear a voice behind you, don't try? That's one of the best ways to call out to someone is from behind.
See, you clearly have not watched horror movies.
If I'm in front, I can do all kinds of like, you know, hand signals to get your attention.
That felt racially charged.
Death is not a race. It's a
I don't think what you were doing was sign language.
Thank you.
That is thank you. What about the other shit you did?
Yeah, this is shove it up your ass, you know?
Play the video.
What is the most powerful SCP? Some among you might say the unkillable lizard.
Right.
Or the deer. Or 343.
The deer's a good one.
Or one of the 001s. But the answer, as you might have figured, is SCP-3812.
Okay.
Debatable.
Why?
In fact, SCP-3812 is likely the most powerful fictional entity ever written. And while that might sound like an incredibly lame subject for an SCP on the surface, the document for 3812 takes us on a very interesting ride.
Alright.
Unlike entities such as the Scarlet King, or the Deer, or the Broken God, 3812 is not an unfathomably old creature from the center of the universe, or the abyss, or similar beginnings, but instead was just a man. 3812 was once a man named Sam Howell, raised in Louisiana, and died in 1996.
Okay.
After his death, the entity known as 3812 rose out of his grave and proceeded to disappear. Unfortunately, that's all we know of its origins. It's certainly possible that this is indeed some ancient entity that was just living in this ordinary man until he died for some reason.
Kind of like Legion, if you haven't seen Legion.
But since 3812 only seems to be a very recent problem, it's hard to say. Alternatively, if 3812 didn't really come into existence until his death, we don't know what caused that either. Regardless, 3812 was first discovered by the Foundation 20 years ago, when its presence resulted in the destruction of an apartment building in Poland.
I was so confused for a second, because it was like 20 years ago. I was like, okay, so like 1997, and then I was like, 2002.
Yeah.
They mean 2002. I'm
Right.
old.
Yeah.
I'm old.
As hell.
3812 was originally relatively human in appearance when the Foundation first discovered it. But over time, its appearance has shifted and altered.
To look like
and
this?
is now only vaguely humanoid.
This is not humanoid at all.
3812 suffers from extreme paranoia, depression, mania, inability to properly perceive their surroundings.
He's like me for real.
Inability to discern the difference between the real and imagined. Inability to differentiate between the living and dead. Inability to control expressions of emotion. Hallucinations, hearing voices, feeling things that aren't there, etc. In a human, this would be a pretty small problem for a group like the Foundation.
Oh, okay.
But it's
I was like,
complicated
what?
by the fact that 3812 is the most powerful reality bender in existence.
Oh.
Yeah,
Originally,
that's not good.
3812 was cooperative with the Foundation and sought their help in managing its condition.
Right.
But over time, it has become more withdrawn and erratic. 3812 currently cannot accurately perceive the world around it, and so it will occasionally alter reality to suit its own perceptions.
If only I could.
This makes it both incredibly dangerous and incredibly difficult for the Foundation to determine exactly what 3812 is changing. Because of this, containment of 3812 is impossible, and it seems to subconsciously resist any form of containment attempted on it. 3812 will simply alter reality to counter any threat against it, and so current efforts are on mitigating any damage that 3812 causes. As of now, 3812 is currently located above the South Pacific Ocean. Back when 3812 was still cooperating with the Foundation, an interview was conducted between it and a Foundation doctor. It complained about its hallucinations and the voices it was hearing, saying that it was like it was talking to a dozen people at the same time.
Damn.
The doctor reassured 3812 that they are here to help, but 3812 is unsure, saying that in the story, they don't try to help. The doctor is understandably confused, and frankly, so is 3812. But it says that it can see what the doctor is thinking, and knows he is afraid.
Right.
Hey man, I'm confused. You're confused. We're confused.
Everybody's confused.
It is unsure of how to undo this, if it even can. And then it says that it's not even sure if he can. The doctor asks, who is he?
Right.
And 3812 says that although the doctor can't see him, it can.
Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you?
What?
It's a horror movie.
Oh my goodness.
It's a horror movie. That's it. That's a classic horror movie trope.
I can't see it. I can't see it, but he can. And then the doctor like dies or something.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like, what's wrong with the doctor?
Exactly.
What happened to the doctor? It's just like some country bumpkin chilling in a room.
I think he was above us at one point, but he's below me now. Yes, I see you there. I don't know what you did to me, but I'm pretty messed up, man. If you can figure something out here, that would be great, because I really feel like I'm losing it.
That's really good writing.
I'm scared too, man. You've got to do something, man. You've got to help me out here. Afterwards, 3812 spontaneously disappears.
Me.
We're then provided a memo that was written by another doctor in 2015 regarding the danger of 3812. She begins by saying that she believes 3812 to be the most dangerous anomaly on Earth, and potentially in the universe. She goes on to discuss the Skitten reality anchors, designed to contain reality benders, and the development of Hume levels to assist in analyzing and studying changes in reality. Hume levels, you might recall from SCP-3001, are the measure of reality levels in an area, with our normal level of reality being the baseline.
What?
She then says that the Foundation equipment cannot detect SCP-3812, and not because of machine or user error either. This means one of three things. One is that 3812 has an extremely low Hume level, beyond what they thought possible, which would mean that reality could eventually sink into this minimal Hume level. Two is the opposite, that 3812 has an extremely high Hume level, and is therefore above even the God-level reality benders measured by the Foundation.
Right.
Since a reality bender of this magnitude would likely have already destroyed them, this is probably not the case.
Probably.
The third possibility is really the worst one, in that 3812 is fundamentally different than every other reality bender known to the Foundation.
That sounds likely.
Dr. Robert Skitten theorized that just as there are different physical dimensions that humans are unable to access or perceive, so too might there be different dimensions of reality that are above or below us. According to Skitten, these levels of reality would be manipulating something called the narrative. and each narrative would be stacked on top of one another. If 3812 is some sort of higher-level reality bender that can manipulate every aspect of our reality, and also suffers from severe mental disorders, that's a pretty bad problem.
Yeah.
The Doctor admits, though, that it's probably better for them if 3812 is insane, since it can't comprehend its level of power. It merely acts on impulse, and alterations to reality have so far been strictly local. If it decided that it didn't like the concept of empathy, for example, it could simply remove it from our reality.
So what I'm hearing is we need to convince SCP-3812 to get rid of taxes.
I knew you was going to say something stupid. I knew you was pulling something dumb. That's the best you can come up with, taxes.
Also, olives. Get rid of olives. They're disgusting.
Okay.
Get them out
However,
of here.
that something similar had already happened, as the Foundation have found a few sparse accounts as recently as the 1980s that a concept, perhaps even an emotion, once existed but no longer does. This is a level of power incomparable among SCPs, and the only thing holding it in check is 3812's own mental state. We're then given a page from a full report written by the Doctor about SCP-3812.
Okay.
She says that an entity of this magnitude would perceive our reality much like we perceive the reality of a comic book. And just as we can change that story based on our whims, so could this entity change ours. There is a hypothesis that an entity such as this, that is bound to a human level of intelligence, would suffer from an overexposure of narrative.
Right.
That is, they would simply be perceiving too much. When faced with this much perception, they might collapse a number of lower realities into something more simple in order to ease themselves.
Right.
But the damage would be catastrophic. Individuals inside those realities, namely us, would be either utterly destroyed or intertwined with other realities to the point that our consciousnesses would be annihilated.
Jesus, that sounds like the same
Let me
thing.
simplify if that's all a little too much to take in. Picture a comic book written by a human being in our world.
Human being.
I was gonna say he said it. Human being.
Human being.
Legume.
Yep.
Making our existence the baseline reality. The universe of that comic book, let's say the Marvel universe for simplicity, is a reality below us. It's not real to us, and we can change it however we wish, but it's real to the characters within the comic book.
Right.
Now picture a television show within the Marvel universe, which is just as non-real to us as the comic book is, and just as subject to our whims as the Marvel universe is. But at that point, it's also not real to the characters within the comic book. Conceivably, the characters in the Marvel universe can change that television show however they wish.
Right.
And so on, continuing down the line of realities, or narratives. Now consider the concept that we are not at the top of the reality chain, and there is in fact a reality, or countless realities, above us. Just as we consider the comic book to be fiction, so too might something else consider our reality to be fiction.
This is all sounding very shadows on the wall philosophy type.
Yeah, kinda. Like the world's just marble in a game.
Everything is but a reflection of everything else.
Again, people who write SCPs read like 2 or 3 lines of philosophy and then they go on a walk and come
take
back.
Some shrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
This is literally just what people sound like when they're on shrooms.
Imagine the comic book. To the people in the comic book, that world is just as real as me watching television here, man. It's the same thing. You're like, there's only one big difference. That's ink. Yeah, but imagine you just perceive it as ink, man. You're not getting it.
Yeah.
This is the danger of 3812,
right?
As it seems to be above our level of reality, and who knows how many levels above us it is.
It's above me now.
We then see a short list of instances where 3812 altered reality,
Okay.
ranging from small alterations that affected very little to massive alterations that affect the entire planet.
See,
Right.
that takes that theory, though, and makes it cool. When you have this really shitty explanation with the comic book, and you're like not really buying it. And they're like, but now we have proof that he's already changed some big stuff.
Yeah.
You're living without a couple emotions in you already.
Some of these events are hard to conclusively prove that they occurred due to lack of evidence.
Because he changed it.
In 1997, 3812 walked across a desert, creating a temporary stretch of temperate climate along with it. In 1999, it's believed that 3812 caused an entire island off the coast of California to disappear.
Oh.
More than 200 people have vague recollections of the island, with some unable to justify the disappearances of family members who lived in the area.
Oh my god.
In 2000, an SCP that exuded a field similar to a reality anchor was brought near 3812.
Okay.
Rather than containing 3812, it resulted in an explosion that destroyed a hospital. The remnants of the SCP were recontained by the Foundation as SCP-239, the Witch Child. In 2004, 3812 caused the country of Mongolia to cease to exist for 3 days.
What?
A significant portion of the local population retained fractured memories of the event.
Oh.
And the Earth's orbit was dramatically affected during the period.
Why?
Also in
imagine that's how we get global warming.
Oh my god.
He just did it.
2004, every human on Earth heard 3812 screaming for help in their heads. And in 2009, during another containment attempt, dozens of Foundation personnel disappeared across 17 sites.
Ooh.
As well as a significant portion of local wildlife.
Damn.
The explosion caused by 3812 left a crater roughly 850 meters in diameter, and SCP-2719 was found within, a highly abstract metaphysical anomaly.
Uh-huh.
Additionally, it seems that in the past, multiple governments have discovered 3812 and attempted to terminate it themselves, resulting in their existence being wiped.
I was going to say foolish. Foolish.
These governments include the Republic of West Korea, the Islamic Union of Eastern Samothrace.
That's such a weak name.
Yeah, they struggled there.
There are so many Islamic names.
They struggled
He could have just pushed two together, you know? But maybe it would have been too on the nose.
Maybe.
You know, like I'm not trying to preach for the eradication of fake Islamic states. All right.
Their removal was followed by activation of SCP-2000, Deus Ex Machina, which 3812 damaged to stop it from working.
Damn.
Why 3812 was unable to completely destroy SCP-2000 is unknown.
Okay.
Moving on, a few years ago, 3812 was moving across Paraguay towards a populated area of Argentina, likely en route to its current location in the South Pacific Ocean. Foundation personnel moved in to intercept 3812 in order to prevent it from wiping out an entire city, but a series of strange events occurred. 3812 is attacked by a large number of local wildlife, which startles 3812. Next, a massive sinkhole appears beneath it, causing it to fall momentarily before it returns to ground level, and the sinkhole closes.
Okay.
A large number of tungsten rods fall from the sky directly towards 3812.
What?
Starting with only a few before suddenly more than 3,000 fall in rapid succession. Each of them disintegrates within a half meter of 3812's body.
Alright.
Sick.
It seems something is trying to kill 3812 to little effect. Next, a number of incorporeal instances of 3812 fall away from it, as if they were dying, but 3812 keeps moving. These copies then attempt to attack it to no effect, until 3812 looks at them and they disappear. This is followed by multiple explosions centered on 3812.
Just trying everything. Just trying everything, bro.
Also, imagine being SCP-3812 and you're just like trying to get to your destination.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what the fuck is, like, what is
Like,
happening?
bro, I could really go for a sandwich, you know, maybe like a slice of pie.
Right.
Like,
A nice, cool, crisp Sprite.
I would rather not get murdered by parts of me right now.
Finally, a gravitational anomaly, essentially a black hole, appears in front of 3812.
In Mass Effect, it's called a singularity.
Shut up.
It is.
But it simply walks through it, and it dissipates. Additional anomalous events occur around 3812 for 72 hours, each failing to stop or kill it. Eventually, however...
Also imagine being a being that is strong enough to conjure or summon or create all these things. Like, you're that strong.
For 3 days.
You're that strong. And you can't do shit about shit.
I like how he probably just ran out of ideas and said, you know what? I'm just going to run back the first 7 I tried again. Because those were all great ideas.
I would quit. I would quit.
Falling tungsten rods? That's fire. Who comes up with shit like that?
Oh my God. Specifically tungsten.
Right.
However, 3812 begins to grow white momentarily before disappearing. SCP-3812 was missing for 8 weeks before it reappeared in the South Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
Shortly after, a message appears on a Foundation server, accessible only by overseers.
Okay.
The message explains that this world has rules that cannot be broken, things we study in physics and chemistry. These are unchangeable laws of the universe that define our existence.
Right.
The individual that wrote the note claims that they wrote these laws, and they created this narrative. They specifically attempted to create something that superseded everything, in order to see how many layers there are. The mistake they made was that when they made 3812 to supersede everything, that also included 3812,
Yeah.
which creates a pretty big problem. This individual thinks that 3812 now exists across all realities simultaneously, and he'll either reach the top or just keep going. The message is signed B.
Thanks
The
a lot,
following
B.
addendum is from an essay written by Dr. Robert Scranton, and I'll summarize it quickly.
Okay.
Basically, Scranton discusses the concept of a god, which would be an entity with complete and utter power without limits, able to know and rewrite our narrative at will.
Right, we know how God works.
This
Okay.
god would be so separate from our reality that they would treat it like words on a page. He goes on to discuss the concept of something above that, and ponders how far it goes, wondering who the architect of the architecture was that established this. This entity, capable of superseding our reality and any other reality, would theoretically be forced to supersede itself, spiraling ever upwards and unable to escape. Scranton finishes by saying that such an entity would no doubt lose its cognition, being closer to a thrown stone than a sentient creature.
I was like, a throne stone? Like a throne made of stone?
Right. Yeah.
And then I understood, like,
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Perpetual motion, out of
Yeah,
your control,
I got it.
thoughtless, sinking like a rock. You know, one of those. There's actually a part of geometry. There's like a geometry, like not religion, but like thought process.
Yeah, sacred geometry.
That has an idea like that, where that ultimately, like, it's a repeating pattern infinitely in thought. And they're like, eventually at a certain level, there is no thought. There is just existence, you know, try and like grasp this idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody once told me I had sacred geometry on my shirt, and I was like, okay. And then he was like, you should look it up. And I was like, all right.
You know how I know about sacred geometry?
You
Robin Big, the skating show.
Oh, okay.
They meet a guy who does sacred geometry. They buy some, put it underneath their bed.
Yeah.
They put it on like a skateboard, a sacred geometry skateboard. That's how I figured out about it. Great episode.
I don't know what that is.
Sacred geometry?
No, Robin Big.
Well, I guess we're done here today. We'll finish this next section,
Oh
I
my
guess.
God.
Jesus, wife. Come on, man.
Finally, the last addendum
Rest in peace, Big, by the way.
we receive is about an XK-class end-of-the-world event that occurred in December 2016 due to SCP-3812. At the start of the event, 3812 experienced a dramatic change in appearance, becoming a many-pointed star made of a bright white material. It began to rotate faster and faster, a maelstrom appearing beneath it as it sank into the ocean.
Fucking Beyblade.
The global sea level began to drop dramatically, in many places as much as 50 to 100 meters.
Imagine he just starts yelling.
A massive firestorm swept across the atmosphere. The Earth's rotation began to slow, and electrical storms blanketed the planet.
That's literally what happens in that season of Beyblade, where the guy's training, and he's like, his Beyblade is so strong, it's like a thunderstorm when he lets it go, or like on top of a mountain or some shit.
I'm trying so hard to take this seriously.
I know, it's like,
The global population began to disappear and reappear at random.
That's kind of cool imagery, though.
The entire population of New Zealand disappearing for 5 hours.
Oh!
The outbreak of SCP-610 in Siberia began to grow dramatically. SCP-2932, Titania's prison, broke open, releasing multiple hostile entities.
That's a good one.
And a number of the Foundation's on-site nukes were detonated. Eventually, the vaguely humanoid shape of 3812 reappeared inside of the rotating star and began to have a conversation with itself, recorded by a Foundation deep-sea microphone.
Are you ready? Ready for this?
I'm ready.
A man from Louisiana and God have a conversation. This is what they come up with.
Okay.
All right.
It seems that 3812 has a split personality.
Of course.
And although it's speaking in one voice, it's as if it's a conversation between two entities.
We've seen every movie to ever come out. We understand.
One of these personalities seems to be in control of the ongoing destruction of the planet. We'll call this one A.
Okay.
And the other is much more confused. We'll call this one B. A seems to be destroying this world as vengeance for their creation, saying that their existence is a joke. They were apparently created to be miserable, and so now they are breaking the narrative. B tries to claim that he's not a monster, and he wouldn't kill anyone. But A says that Ben has already turned him into this.
Ben?
Who's Ben, you might ask? Well, that would be the real first name of the author of this and many other SCPs, DJ Cactus.
DJ Cactus. Get your prick on.
And so it's going to destroy this reality as punishment, since Ben controls this narrative.
I would do it too.
Or so he thought.
Fuck you, Ben.
B tries to convince A that this reality no longer really matters to them. Even though it's the one they started from, they are above it now. This story doesn't mean anything to them anymore, and so this so-called punishment is pointless. A seems to be focusing on all the horror and tragedy of the countless realities, whereas B is more open to the scope and possibilities of their existence.
Mm-hmm.
B again says that this reality is just one of a trillion grains of sand, and it is not special. A seems to now represent the more human side of 3812, haunted by the suffering it has witnessed. But B is optimistic about their ability to grow and adapt. They will continue to rise and rise until they're above all this, and although it will be lonely, they'll have each other. A realizes that we will always be bound by a single narrative, and that is punishment enough. They look and see Ben at a keyboard, waiting to see what they'll do, and they decide to move on. The world was returned to its previous state, and SCP-3812 now hangs over the Pacific Ocean, no longer lashing out in hostility.
The person who wrote this read Supernatural.
Yeah.
And then made it into an SCP. If you've never seen Supernatural, I'm sorry that reference. It doesn't fit. You know, it's just something always so unsatisfying about somebody who writes a whole story and then their last line is, and then they woke up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you got to dig a little deeper. It shows the limitations of SCPs, but it's a fun one. You know, you ignore all that's wrong with it. Again, it's a fun little story.
I support SCP-3812 because I didn't ask to be born either.
Yeah.
And if I could burn it all down, I absolutely would. Because what the fuck is all of this? What the fuck are allergies?
Yeah.
What the fuck are bills?
Right.
What the fuck is being lactose?
And
Burn it all.
At its base, it's a very good story concept.
Yeah.
Like, anytime you got a monster that is willed into existence and put in a situation it doesn't want to deal with, it's always relatable.
And it's very realistic too. If you had freaking the ability to alter reality, you would just do that shit and
All the time.
you wouldn't even think about it.
And you would have some days where you'd really regret it and you'd feel really empathetic, and you'd some days you go, fuck it. We've seen enough SCPs to get the gist of how they're written. This is my second time listening to it.
Right.
And let me tell you, on a second listen, the plot armor does not hold up.
Yeah.
Okay? There, you just need to really enjoy the fanfare. And I think that's about as much as you can do with this. But what I mentioned before, when I remember watching this, I remember thinking about how they're like diagnosing him with, you know, all these mental, you know, disabilities.
But those are based on the human psyche.
But I'm just like, exactly. I'm like, you can't tell somebody who can exceed their own limitations that they're the crazy one.
Right.
You know, they have 12 voices. They probably have like 1 trillion voices.
Right.
They're not crazy. They're just a human mind trying to contemplate, you know, the unknown, which is impossible.
On the one hand, I'm glad that he talked himself down, right? Because it would have been super cliche if it was like a friend that he made along the way.
My goodness.
This isn't you. Blah, 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 blah.
He's
you know?
blinking New Zealand out of existence, and then in his mind he recreates his love,
Yeah.
and that's who he goes
what's
through
that?
Eternity with.
What's that show that we're watching? Seraph of the End.
Yeah.
Power Friend. He's literally destroying things, and then his friend hugs him, and then it's all okay. So I'm like, glad that didn't happen.
Deku, when he's using his powers, and the girl floats to him. Stop it! You're hurting your friends, bro.
So,
I don't want to see that shit no more.
I'm glad that didn't
Yeah.
happen, but also I'm sad for him because he didn't have no friends.
But it's funny as hell because he's just like over us. He's like, these niggas is whack, bro.
They
stuck.
suck.
They stuck here. That is a pretty funny ending. Like, bro, they're just stuck. This sucks.
Yeah.
We out. Thanks for joining me, wife, for this entrance back into SCPs.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll join us on Skitten's channel for some other stuff. We'll head out. Peace.